now reconvenes this work session of the Plano ISD Board of Trustees in open session at 6:05 p.m. on November 28, 2017 at the Plano ISD Administration Center. I'm Missy Bender, President of the Plano ISD Board of Trustees. We will conduct our meeting focusing on the district's two major goals: ensuring the continued improvement in student learning and ensuring the efficient use of resources. This evening, we have a couple of items for discussion and action. At this time, we will begin to address those. First item is related to consideration and possible action regarding the resignation of board member Greg Myer pursuant to board policy BBC Legal. Trustee Greg Myer has made the board aware of his decision to resign his position as trustee, stating personal reasons. The board is required to accept his resignation. A vacancy will occur on the date of his resignation. Board membership is voluntary, and any trustee can choose to resign for any reason. The board wishes our colleague well and thanks him for his service. Do I have a motion to accept Greg Myer's resignation?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. I'd like to share with you some information about the way in which this vacancy will be filled. This position was just elected in the most recent election cycle. We have another election cycle in May of 2019. Therefore, we will have the opportunity to appoint someone to fill this position until May of 2019. That's a year and a half from now. At that time, the position must come up for the regular election cycle, but at that time it will be for a 2-year period of time. So that individual who would be elected at that time would then fill the unexpired term of 2 years. So there are a total of 3.5 years remaining, but the appointment by the board will only last for 1.5 years. A new election will occur at that time for the remaining 2 years of this particular position. The board has determined that we will use an application process. A subcommittee of board members will determine the elements of that application, and it will be made available to the public. The subcommittee will present to the board for its consideration at the December 12th regular meeting the application for the board's consideration and a timeline as well. So if you are interested in the vacancy process, that is how we will fill the vacancy. And we hope to take action in the near term following the board's consideration on December 12th of the application. We'll take applications and understand the process made clear to us by the subcommittee. Okay. The next item on our agenda is unrelated to the previous item. This is related. We will now consider and take possible action regarding the resignation of and actions related to the resignation of our superintendent. The first action: our superintendent of schools, Dr. Binggeli, will resign as superintendent effective January 31, 2018. Dr. Binggeli has served Plano ISD for 2.5 years as superintendent. Do I have a motion from the board to accept the resignation of Dr. Binggeli?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
Do I have any discussion?
Well, I'll start. I would just like to express, Brian, we appreciate your time here at PISD, and personally, I wish you well in your future endeavors.
Thank you so much.
Well, I'll say for sure that the Board of Trustees extends our appreciation for your service. Your enthusiasm for education and for students are a hallmark of your administration.
Thank you.
Dr. Binggeli, as you begin your leave, please know that you carry with you our very best wishes.
Thank you.
And Brian, I wanted to thank you for the example you've set, the visibility and the connection with our teachers and staff, and creating an environment focused on lifelong learning.
Okay.
And then when I was elected in May, I thought you and Sarah made a great team since May, and I know that we're poised to continue teamwork for excellence. Thank you for your service to Plano ISD.
Thank you.
Tonight's agenda brings us to a point of recognizing that we possess differing leadership philosophies, and we have mutually agreed to make a change. The challenging part of this decision is largely behind us, and we now focus on wishing you the very best in your new pursuits. Thank you very much for your service to our school children, families, and staff of Plano ISD. Our horizons may be changing, but the outcomes will be based on what is best for students. Thank you for making this the center of your leadership. Sarah, would you like to make a comment?
I would. Dr. Binggeli, in the last 6 months, having the opportunity to serve as a part of your leadership team has been an honor and a privilege.
Thank you.
I appreciate all of the support that you've given to me and to the leadership team of the district, but more than that, the care for students, families, and staff is evident in everything you've done. And I thank you for that and your service to this district.
Dr. Binggeli, would you like to make a few comments?
I would, and thank you, Ms. Bender. First of all, let me say thank you to the board for the opportunity to serve here in Plano ISD. This organization does so much to provide such high-quality learning opportunities for the children of this community. And really, it's able to do that because it enjoys tremendous support from so many in our community, and it has employees in every school and department that work with great skill and passion on behalf of those children. And Sarah Bonzer is certainly exemplifies that. So more than anything else, I just want to say thank you to all of the citizens for that support, and express my sincere appreciation and admiration for the talented and dedicated employees that make PISD such a great place for children to grow and learn. I wish all of you and PISD the very best.
We will now consider the action. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. The second action related to this item is the resignation agreement. Do I have a motion to accept the resignation agreement as presented?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. The next item is related to consideration and possible action regarding the appointment of an interim superintendent. With the acceptance of Dr. Binggeli's resignation, the board considers Ms. Sarah Bonzer as the interim superintendent. Ms. Bonzer has been serving as the interim deputy superintendent since May of 2017. Do I have a motion to approve Sarah Bonzer as interim superintendent?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. I'd like to make a few comments, and then Sarah, I'll invite you to make a few comments. We now turn our attention to transitioning leadership to Ms. Bonzer, who is now appointed as our interim superintendent. She brings a wealth of experience and motivational ideas to this position, and has been in her current role since May of 2017, and has a long history in Plano ISD as a former teacher and administrator. Ms. Bonzer, would you like to share a few words?
Thank you, President Bender. I want to thank the board and the district for giving me the opportunity to be the interim deputy superintendent and now to serve the district in the role of interim superintendent. It's an honor and a privilege that you've bestowed on me, and I look forward to the opportunity to serve the students, families, staff, and community of Plano, which is my home. So thanks very much.
Thank you. take a brief recess, and we will reconvene at 6:30 p.m.
I just got.
The board now reconvenes this work session of the Plano ISD Board of Trustees in open session at 6:30 p.m. on November 28, 2017 at the Plano ISD Administration Building. The following items are for information only with no action. First up is an update on bond projects. Tony Pearson, the Assistant Director of Facilities Services, will introduce the update on bond projects. Mr. Pearson?
Thank you very much. Good evening. As mentioned, we wanted to take this opportunity this evening to showcase 3 of our current bond projects, those being the Plano ISD New Fine Arts Center, the new Employee Child Care number 4, and the major renovations happening at our Robinson Middle School project. We have our architects here tonight with us. The PowerPoints are loaded up and they're ready to impress. So really, I'm going to keep it kind of short and let them get after it and really kind of show and highlight these projects. The Fine Arts Center is the first one up. We've got our architects here tonight, which is Perkins & Will and Bora, as well as the builders are also represented with McCarthy Construction. I think what's been identified, they wanted me to mention that we have a $51 million construction budget for this project. It's a big one. We've been working hand in hand with quite a few board workshop sessions with our fine arts group. Kathy Cuttis' group has been well represented in attending all these workshops and have just been, and the architect has been able to just get all the information necessary to come together with what they're about to show you tonight. So it's very impressive. With that being said, I'll introduce Daniel Day of Perkins & Will, Stephen Weeks with Bora. What you guys have? All right.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having us tonight. We're very excited to show you the Fine Arts Center. My name is Daniel Day. I'm with Perkins & Will. I'm the Senior Project Manager and I'm leading the project here locally. To my left is Stephen Weeks. He's with Bora Architects out of Portland. They're our design partners who bring a lot of fine arts expertise and performing arts expertise to the project. So we feel like it's been a great team. We've really worked very well collaboratively together. As Tony mentioned, we've worked well with our contracting partners throughout this process, as well as our consulting team, including our theater and acoustic consultants and all of our various engineers. We feel like it's been a very collaborative and engaging type of process. But I think one thing that makes this process successful to this point has been our engagement with Plano ISD. As Tony mentioned, Kathy and her team, and Tony and his team as well, have been integral to the process. And it's been very exciting, and we feel like the project is going to meet the expectations of the district and be a landmark building for the district, and really be an exciting element for the district moving forward. So before we get into the design, which I'll let Stephen speak to, talk just real briefly about where we've been in terms of schedule, where we are currently, and where we're going. So we started with our programming phase back in the early part of February, and we've had engagements on a very regular basis throughout this project, again with Kathy and her team. They brought a lot of good information, good input to this process. Then followed by schematic design, of course. We're currently in the design development phase. So as of today, we actually had our 9th workshop with the district today. We just concluded it before we came over here. And so again, it's been a great process. We anticipate delivering our design development drawings on December 7th. Those drawings will be priced by our contracting partner, McCarthy. We anticipate that we'll be on budget, as Tony mentioned, $51 million. And so that's very exciting. We're really looking forward to that. We will proceed into the construction document phase, which is essentially writing the graphic and written communication that instructs the contractor how to build the building. We'll follow that up with the bid phase, and of course we'll start construction on or about September of next year. We anticipate 23-month construction phase, and we hope to have this building substantially complete in August of 2020. Again, we're very excited about it. We think it's going to be a landmark building for the district. And with that, I will turn it over to Stephen.
Thanks, Dan. And thanks, everyone, for inviting us here. This has been a wonderful project for our office and our team, and a great process working not only with Dan, but the district as well. Our process always start with a statement of goals so that we understand what the clients need out of the project. And this one, a robust 2-page list of goals. I'm not going to go through them all, but I believe you have them. Point out a couple of really key ones that we've allowed to drive the project. First of all, no less than 1,500 seats. We understand that is absolute, so we're delivering that. It's also really a state-of-the-art building that's going to serve UIL competitions, which is an important aspect of the project, which makes it a unique art center compared to a conventional kind of civic art center. The acoustics are paramount, so the spaces have to sound as good as they look. And really fundamental to the project is that it serves all of the arts equally, that we're not just supporting music or theater or dance or visual arts, but all of them. So we've really taken that and developed the building around that idea of representing all of the arts. The last one is an important one, to lead the nation. The goal and the bar was set really high to make this a really amazing building for the district, and we are doing our best to achieve that one. So I'm going to skip on ahead to a presentation of the design. This is a kind of abstract diagram of the site plan that, just want to point out, represents the kind of 4 pieces of the project in these 4 what appear to be orange colored on my screen, but kind of beige up on this screen. The largest piece is the 1,500 seat theater, and then the 3 other venues that sort of ring around it are for music, for visual arts, and for theater. All of the arts represented, and they come together in the white space, which is this pointer. Maybe that pointer doesn't work. That allows this property to connect from the park into the lobby space. So the site plan, if you're familiar where the site is, it's on Alma Drive. So you approach from Alma Drive via the entry drive that's labeled there. The building is set into the landscape. We're not just putting an object there, but setting it into a landscape and creating a wonderful foreground for the building. You enter into the project through a grove of trees so that the inside and the outside are really connected, so that you feel like you are a part of the landscape site. Parking is over 700 spaces that will accommodate the facility, and the service and loading areas are tucked away out of sight at the back of the property. Now there are 2 ways to approach, either from the west or from the south. This view is from the west, so we are approaching, coming down the hill slightly and underneath a really welcoming canopy that we call the light cloud. As you'll see in some of the next next images, it's a canopy that's filtering daylight into the lobby and making the lobby feel like it's part of an inside-outside space. The approach from the south is through the grove of trees. So again, you're really foregrounding the landscape and feeling like this is arts in a park. We feel like the potential connection to Harrington Park is an important aspect of this project and how it stitches into the community. So people will be able to approach actually from the park side eventually if the bridge were built, which we understand is in an early planning phase. But approaching this way will provide a kind of different experience through the trees and into the lobby space in here. So we can zoom into the plan. You see obviously the large theater, 1,500 seats. It has two levels to it. This is the main floor. And then the other three main venues on the lower right part of the plan is a studio theater, which is like a black box. It'll seat 150 seats, or up to 200 with some loose chairs as well. The room in the upper left corner is a multi-purpose rehearsal room for music and for dance and for professional development activities that can be divided to serve as two simultaneous kind of classrooms. And then the room that's in the lobby is the gallery, and we've sort of designed a really special way for the gallery to anchor the lobby and not only have art inside, but art on the outside of the gallery that activates the lobby in an interesting way. That is the view from that main lobby space. So we're filtering daylight down through this light cloud with a series of skylights that animate the space by day. You're looking here back to the west, back to the main entrance. And off to the left is the gallery, which sits as a lower volume inside of a higher lobby space. So it receives daylight as well from above, like the rest of the lobby. Then off to the right is the main entrance into the theater. And everywhere you are in the building, you'll have daylight infusing those public areas and the ability to spill outdoors for intermission or breaks and things like that. Warming up the space with a lot of wood, natural wood, signify all of the entries into the main venues as also a kind of wayfinding piece. So people have an easy orientation to getting where they need to go. This is a view of the gallery. So we're looking to the west. There's a skylight above it that'll allow filtered light to come down into the room. And the gallery can work for many students at once, or is also capable of supporting even a kind of professional level art exhibition if needed.
I know that natural light is important for LEED certification. Are we actually trying for LEED certification?
LEED certification is not one of the standards that are being pursued for this project. However, in our work and in the work of Perkins & Will, we, as architects and as companies, are committed to developing buildings in the most sustainable way that we can. Getting the certification is not part of the process, but our standard specifications for materials are at a very high level in terms of performance and avoiding toxic materials, very similar to what you would find in a LEED project. Here's an upper level plan. So there's one balcony and the ability to get up in the lobby and overlook the lower lobby spaces. So you're really connected between the two floors. And then this plan just shows the entire extent of the balcony. There's about 1,000 seats on the main floor and 500 seats on the balcony. This view is from the main west entrance. And this little key plan up in the right corner provides that little red arrow that sort of gives you a sense for where we are in the building. We've just come in the front door and we're looking to the northeast. There's a flexible kind of desk that can be used as a will call ticket station, also serve concessions. And you'll have good view into the lobby proper and the upper floor. So there's a lot of good people watching and hangout spots in there for events. Yeah.
Question about
Sure.
access to the upstairs. Are there multiple elevators?
That is a sort of tell a bunch of black, smudgy lines. There's one elevator that's just to the east of that. One elevator that serves all the levels of the building, so it's fully accessible right there from that main corner of the lobby. The site does slope quite a bit, so the building actually, the way we're fitting it into the landscape, again, the building is following the slope, so there are some ramps. If I go all the way back, right along the edge of the theater, there's some stairs that go across the lobby to separate the upper lobby from the lower, and that's about a 4-foot drop or so. There's also a ramp there, so it's fully accessible in an inviting way. Let's skip back ahead. We come into that space. This is an earlier rendering of that same room, and from this one point, we have the gallery on the left, we have the main theater straight ahead, and the studio theater, which is the black box off to the right. We go into that space on the right side. That's the studio theater. So it's a flexible room with a flat floor and a retractable seating system that will allow a lot of different theatrical events to happen in a more intimate environment that aren't appropriate for a big 1,500 seat hall. So again, about 200 seats or so is the max capacity, but this will be arranged in a lot of different ways. That's a retractable seating system that you see there that can store away into the wall so that you can use the room for other things. UIL competitions, for example, will need to use that as a flat space for warm-up, for example.
So is that room set up for video?
For video,
Yeah.
all these rooms have pretty extensive AV infrastructure and equipment in them. The main room has the most, but there's sort of scaled down versions of audio and video systems with projection screens and the like.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, and I didn't say that correctly. I mean to create, to
capture video.
Yeah, because
Yes.
that looks like a TV studio.
Black boxes are pretty similar to TV studio in some ways. So that aspect of the program was talked about a little bit, and this room would be able to do that if you have the proper backdrop and camera equipment in there to do it in that space. Yes. And back out to the lobby, and then we go straight ahead into the main hall. This is a rendering of the 1,500 seat room. It's a multi-purpose theater, so that means that it has to do a really wide range of things, from orchestra, as you see in this view, but that orchestra shell all moves out off stage, like you see in venues around town. The orchestra ceilings fly out, and there's a full fly tower that can support theater, dance, all sorts of things on the stage. There's an orchestra pit that also supports the flexibility of the stage, and all manner of lighting infrastructure, rigging capacity, projection screens in here as well. It's state-of-the-art theater. Here are a couple side views sort of cut through, so now you're looking at the side, and that's in that same orchestra mode. You see on stage the orchestra shell is there acoustically keeping the sound on stage and projecting it out to the audience. You see the one balcony, and there's a series of box seats that come down and bring the scale of the room down to make it more intimate. So there's some few seats that wrap along the side in the boxes. A couple of ceiling reflectors conceal the catwalks that are overhead, providing lighting positions. All the air will be distributed and supplied from below the floor, which is a good way of using less energy to supply the air in a really low pressure way that's really quiet. So it's great acoustically, it's great energy-wise. Most modern halls are built this way these days. And you also see the orchestra pit, which in this case, the lift is up at the stage level. So the orchestra is able to play out into the room more, which is better acoustically than being held back behind the proscenium. But when you go into theater mode, the orchestra pit lift goes down, the orchestra shell towers are pushed up stage, and the ceiling clouds are flown. And now the stage is a black stage environment that can take all manner of scenery or backdrops or lighting effects for drama, as this indicates. There's also a system of variable acoustics in here that allow the room to change character acoustically to support amplified music as well as exit out the back of the hall. We're back in the lobby. There's a narrower piece of the lobby there, but has the same kind of feel with the same materials, the wood on the walls to warm up the space, and the skylight that's also bringing daylight down. And if we go down those stairs and look back, we see a series of entries at the rear of the hall that take us up into the balcony. And they're all signified by the same kind of color scheme and wood that will allow people to find their way around the building and understand where they're going. And if we go down this hall, there's a little door off to the left, and we find the rehearsal room, which is a flexible flat floor room for orchestra and for dance, as shown here. That's it in dance mode. In orchestra mode, the rest of the ensemble's just not in the room yet. They're a little bit late, but it can serve 120-piece orchestra for rehearsal and for UIL competitions. They'll do the sight reading portion in this room, so the acoustics in here will be fabulous.
So was the floor designed for dance? Is there a special type of floor they
There
put
is.
in?
All three of these venues, the stage, the studio theater in this room, all have a resilient floor. This one's slightly different. It has a hardwood finish, which is a little nicer finish than you get in a typical stage, but it has a resilient base that allows it to serve dance. It's not a fully sprung, really bouncy dance floor, but this is the floor that the district wants in this space.
They'll still be sufficiently kind on the dancers' needs?
Absolutely. Yes.
So would you want to use that for training or a different purpose? Do you have to cover that floor?
No, it's a good hardwood floor that'll be durable with a good durable finish. So it'll be a really nice room to use for those sorts of things, or other banquets or other social events, which also could occur in here. There's a nice daylight and window behind us in this view. You're not seeing that window, but it'll be a really wonderful room for a number of things.
And it looks like that room can be partitioned off, correct?
It can. Yeah, we don't have a view of that in this presentation, but there is a partition. It stacks up over there on the left that divides the room into two equal spaces for training purposes. So each of those rooms could serve about 50 people or so in a kind of classroom arrangement. And there's even some built-in seating you see off in the left. That's primarily there to support the dance performance aspect of the room. Certainly larger scale dance will perform on the main stage, but they do some smaller events that will occur in here. There's also a variable acoustic system, so you're seeing the curtains pulled in this view that can cover up the mirror and dry the room up a little bit as needed acoustically. And then last couple shots here, we're on the upper floor of the lobby looking over that main space. It'll have some furniture, so it's a kind of lounge space, a good social space by the day, and actually you'll be able to see down into the gallery, which is what you're seeing over on the right, and again have a good view that connects you back out to the park and back out to the landscape, so you always feel like you're in connection to nature when you're inside the building. That space is pretty good size. We showed this image just to give you a sense that it could seat a banquet of about 240 people. Plus a head table there. So, and you could even do overflow, squeeze in more than that if you needed. But we felt like this was comfortable. So we have a feeling this is going to be a pretty popular space for events in the community. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
All right, and I think I might have said employee child care center, number 4, and I meant to say early childhood school, number 4. The next one we're going to be talking about is like a Beatty Isaacs Pearson early childhood school, except this one will also have a kitchen and dining component as well. We've got VLK Architects to present on that one, Ross Rivers, Angel Trojas. Good deal.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, board, for having us. Ariane Trose, Ross Rivers.
We wanted to take you through the early childhood school, number 4. We have been involved in your previous early childhood schools. We do not have a budget of $51 million. It's the opposite. It's $15 million. But still will be a very nice facility. So this house is up to 4th grade, correct? I mean, 4 years old, not 4th grade. So we were tasked with taking the previous prototype and fitting it to this kind of triangular site. And the differences being when we started kind of programming the facility, there's been a couple of additional things that need to happen in this school that haven't happened in the previous ones. One is this will have a full service kitchen. Also, there's going to be additional space and storage for some of your after school programs, the Boys and Girls Club, some of the other things that they do, as well as this is actually in the city of Dallas, and they've adopted the 2015 IBC, which the city of Plano has as well. So one of the things that this will have that your previous ones have not had will be the storm shelter that we're required. I'm sure you guys are very aware of that now, but so we're having to fit some things in that you've not previously had in there. So taking all that and looking at the site we were given, we did 2 studies. We did a study with your existing plan, which is kind of a finger H plan. And then we felt like we owed it to you to take a look and see, what if we were starting from scratch with this site in mind and we designed to the site. So what you see in front of you is the plan that was selected by the staff that we've been working with in PISD, which better addresses the site. Both of them will work. This lays out so much better. I think pretty much as soon as we kind of laid it out and showed it, it was unanimous that yeah, we want to go this direction. Kind of what we're doing as well is I think it's been a few years since your last one was built, so we're going back and even though it's going to have the same program, just kind of freshening it up a little bit and making sure that we've got we're doing things in the way they need to be done now with finishes and things like that, updating finishes. So I'm going to let Ariane take you through kind of the actual design of it and how it fits with this site. That's the background of where we got to where we are today. And just to let you know, we're kind of in the middle, pretty much about wrapping up with the DD phase of this project, and I'll talk schedule a little bit later.
Good evening, everybody. Okay, just to add what Ross was saying, we were very excited that you guys went this direction. This site had some characteristics that we thought they were worth to explore. On the south side of the property, it's an existing creek, and there's plenty of vegetation there, so we thought to take advantage of that one, to wrap around to create a design that was going to kind of shelter the courtyard that is the centerpiece of the entire design from the noise pollution that we have from the 2 major streets flanking the property. So technically, we just rearranged the picture. The entire program is puzzle pieces. We rearranged them to fit better on the site. Circulation on this side, parent drop-off areas on the west side of the property. We have a bus drop-off designated, so we don't have clashes in traffic. Stacking is a priority for you guys, so we wanted to make this facility as safe as possible from the accessing point of view. Go to the next slide here. This one, it's pretty much a top view of the entire facility. Here you can see on the bottom part of the drawing is the parent drop-off, also the visitor parking area. On the back is going to be the staff parking area and also the bus drop-off area. In the center, like you see, is the courtyard. We explored a couple of design features on this one. We unanimously, with the district, we decided to have just one centralized one. Initially, we had a plan on the northeast side of the property to have a small courtyard there, helping the classroom facing that side. But then we thought, let's invest everything on this centralized, that it's pretty decent in size. I'm going to go on the next slide is the floor plan. Just like Ross said, we had to accommodate the storm shelter. So we were going back and forth as far as where's the most appropriate location. But knowing that we're dealing with kids, we thought to split that and facilitate the accessibility of these 2. So we have 2 designated storm shelter on both wings. So kids were cutting the traveling distance in half in a way. And we thought it's easy for the staff also to kind of use that as quickly as possible. We hope we never need it, but in case what. Okay, as far as describing the plan, one major thing that we changed was combining the administration. On the previous floor plan, the administration was spread around the entire building. Unanimously, it was decided to have it more centralized. So we came up with this kind of solution. The centerpiece of the entire design, except the courtyard, is the library. We thought to kind of save a very nice spot for that one. It's right there where the two wings are attached together. The library, it's accessible. We were studying as far as having a removable partition initially, but then we settled to just a set of doors. So it could be a nice reading area inside, also outside. Oops, too fast. So this one, it's a quick model rendering highlighting the entry piece. This is what you are going to see as you are trying to kind of take your kids to school, as you are trying to find your parking. The design, we were thinking to have like a transparent kind of entry. It's we are not trying to be just to kind of highlight. It's easy finding the way as quickly as possible was the goal. So this one is another view as you are parking the car, let's say, and you are trying to walk towards the building. One key element during the design concept was visibility. We went back and forth as far as should we kind of think about creating a more protected view, and then we settled to transparency is the number one safety. You can see pretty much someone kind of parking the car, walking towards the building. So we agreed on this solution. Go to the next view. This one here, it's kind of dark, but what we're trying to kind of highlight here is that vegetated area on the south side of the property. And we anticipate nothing is going to be built there because it's already in the flood. So it's a very quiet area. As far as the described architecture, we're trying to kind of be, to use pretty much the same finishes that you have on our entire district. So we have stone, brick, metal panel. Also, to be as efficient as possible with the budget that we have, quorum follows function in this case. I'm going to go back one more time. Here you can see on this one, really, natural light was the key. The entire classroom design. What happened, I don't want to go too much in the weeds, but we had some kind of drastic change as far as how the classroom pod was going to operate. We had to bring lockers that previously they were on the corridors. We brought them in, so we lost a little as far as learning space. So the compromise was to kind of don't lose the natural light. So we have a very linear window that is up high. It's not bothering the students as far as distraction-wise, but it's bringing so much natural light into space. So that thing has two effects also. Cost. The lights are going to be most of the time off, but avoiding having the kids exposed to so much LED light. So anyway, coming back to this one, it's another view. It's technically the camera. It's right there on top of the crate. You can see canopy is doing two functions. It's a fence, also a canopy. During the bus drop-off process, the kids can kind of go underneath the canopy, go on two directions directly to their classrooms or to the activity center that you are seeing in the back there. This one, it's a secondary entry. It's a activity for the activity center for after-hour programmers. And that's it. Open for questions.
And I'll add a couple of things. This school, it's a little bit different than your existing ones. It's laid out more like an elementary school in the fact that it's got the centralized admin, it's got the centralized library, but also with the kitchen and the activity room, you're able to separate those off similar to an elementary school. So if you have the after hours events or the after school programs, sometimes they go in the evening to keep those folks from getting into the rest of your facility if you don't want them to. You're able to kind of separate those functions off. And it will also have a secure vestibule similar to your other schools, so you're forcing everyone into the reception, so you grant them access into the rest of the school. And then the last thing kind of here is the schedule. We're scheduled to go out to bid the middle of February with receiving proposals a month later. Cadence McShane is already on board as the construction manager, so he'll be working with us as we go through here. Determining the best way to build things, do things, as well as providing cost estimates, and then bring this back to you, I guess, the GMP for your May board approval. And then get started this summer and complete in 2019.
Gina, I have a question. For the interior, because have you been to Isaac's Early Childhood School?
Mm-hmm.
The interiors that they share, there's 2 classrooms in 1 room. Is that the interiors are the same for this new school?
Yes, the academic wing is exactly the same. So we have pretty much the same layout. The only drastic change was bringing the lockers that previously they were allowed.
Outside.
So, and this thing was driven by you guys. It's easy to manage the kids when you have them in one room than just have them try and take something outside the classrooms, and then you are forced to monitor them. So.
Okay.
So I've got a couple of questions. First, a comment that Sandy Grayson, who's the city council person for Dallas, this area, calls me about once a year to ask me what's going on with this. So she's going to be ecstatic to see this. I think this is a really neat design for the space, for that particular, the triangular shape of the property. What are we doing between Christina's and our building? Are we putting a fence up? I mean, on one of the pictures it looks like trees, but are we actually going to fence them off?
We haven't got to that point yet. I think we probably would do that. That makes sense. We were trying to create where you can't really see it.
You can't really see it yet. I think it's just a rendition. So
we were trying to create just kind of a natural buffer and having all the activity on our side of the building, inside of the building, and not have any activity on that side, which helps in a lot of ways. But yeah, I think we definitely want to entertain a physical security.
I would make me feel a lot better, right, just because of how many people are coming in and out of that place.
Right.
And the second question is probably not for you guys. This is my last curveball of the Steve Fortenberry career. On the back of the building, that Oak Drive or Creek Drive, whatever, there's a little strip of property between the street and the creek. Does the city of Dallas own that property?
Man, I struck out one more time with a curveball. We'll check on that. Is it on the?
It's on the back side of the building, and I want to say when we looked at this that
the back side of this building to be built.
Yeah.
Or,
I want to say that we looked into it and the city owned that property. That's why we like.
Talking about the opposite side of the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, in front of the,
between the creek and our property.
So I guess it's the far east side of our property.
Background.
Yeah, I want to say from memory there may have been some lots down there. I don't hardly know how they could have been buildable. We'll find out if the city owns that or if it's individuals that own those lots. Would your interest be in acquiring those just to
yeah, I think
finish
the question
off?
Just being, I don't think they're developable because there's a creek right there. So I honestly think we've already looked into this and that the city of Dallas owns those. I just was wondering to make sure that that doesn't get developed.
Okay.
On the site plan, is that number 1? When you look at the very first slide?
Number 3.
Oh, okay.
So number 1 faces Maple Shade. That faces the Lowe's.
And we own that piece of land?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
So
let me, while the next presentation's going on, I'll see if I can pull up on the Collin County Appraisal District map and see if it could show us who owns it. If not, then I'll wait till Dan does his cybersecurity.
This is not a curve, this is a big thank you, because when we first talked about this, I think completion was going to be 2020, and I thought, Steve, I'll be so old then. I won't be that much younger in June of 2019, but I thank you very much for the effort. Even though your budget is 1.5 versus 5.1, the work you're doing here is so critical to the children of this district. I mean, we've done such amazing things. Full day, 4-year-old school, even though the state only pays for half. Amazing work. The fact that we're adding some forms of community support, bringing our community in to help our families give their children the very best start. The fact that we're replicating some of our Head Start-like services on the west side of our district for the very first time. I wish the TV cameras were here to see this type of important work. So thank you for what you're doing. You're helping us continue our preeminence as a district, educating all our kids, so thank you. And thank you, Susan, for being here doing every bit of this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
evening is the major renovation project at the Robinson Middle School.
Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. I want to see that. Come back. Don't leave with that.
Is it a cake?
I haven't seen that yet.
That must be like their 9th one that they've built. It's been pretty impressive.
Oh. I want to keep it.
So can you orient? Is this Alma here? And this is like a little patio? Oh, the inside lobby. And then the amphitheater is, but the outdoor. Right here. Okay. Very cool. Thank you.
Uh-oh, something dropped off.
You dropped the tree.
I mean, somebody brings a toy, we have to look at the toy. Somebody made that.
All right, so Robinson Middle School renovation, we saw the first one was had a big budget. The last one had a slightly smaller budget. This one's right, a good fit right in the middle. Robinson Middle School's got a $25.4 million budget. It's a full renovation of the existing campus plus some additions. It will have some storm shelter aspects as talked about in the last one as well. Corrigan Architects is here tonight to talk about this one. We got Brett Sumrow and Bobby LaJoy. Much, if anybody remembers Hendrick Middle School, you know, Robinson Middle School shares that same footprint. What we did with Hendrick a couple years ago was got into that entire building and renovated it. They're doing it, and they're doing the same thing here. So finishes, new finishes throughout, and all that. So let them continue the discussion.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, board. Interim Superintendent, congratulations and thank you. And we're happy to be here to share this project with you. If I make it go the right direction, and I did. So these are the project goals that we had when we started. Of course, we were given a program, but in addition to that, we wanted to increase classroom sizes to meet the current TEA and the current standards in Plano ISD with your newer facilities. We're re-engineering the major building systems, including mechanical, electrical, plumbing. And one component of this is we are converting this school to geothermal, which was not done at Hendrick, which adds some more challenges that we're ready and our construction manager is ready to overcome. We are going to look at improve the circulation and how students move throughout the building and really look at security. Right now, similar to Hendrick, where they solved this problem as well, but the administration is located in the center of the school, and so they have to buzz in visitors remotely, and once you get in, you have free reign of the facility. So we were looking to address that situation in our solution. Whoops, button happened. And then we were going to upgrade the cafeteria and provide a new kitchen. It's a completely redesigned kitchen within the existing space, and look at that connection between cafeteria and kitchen. Update the finishes throughout, address life safety and code issues, and this is really where the code has changed over the years. So we're going to provide new life safety systems in the new building to meet the current codes. And that's not to say that there's issues now.
Is that the storm shelter?
That's in addition to the storm shelter. This is like fire alarm, things like that. Okay. And then address the advanced technology standards of the district, and then freshen up the exterior appearance. And we found an opportunity to create a new main entry for this building, which we'll show you. So the first thing we wanted to do is, and I'm not going to go through every space, but we wanted to understand what the existing facility was in comparison to the program we were given. And so this is really just a diagram to understand how the building is used. And then this is our proposed new first floor plan. Just to point out kind of the major things we're doing is creating a new addition on the north that will create a new front door and new administration offices and a new library. Currently the library is on the second floor, and we'll kind of show you the advantages of doing that. In addition to that, there's a new fine arts addition to the south that will house 2 new art classrooms, which is also currently on the second floor, as well as a new band room, which allows them to get bigger. Then the choir moves to the existing band, so everybody gets, choral actually stays where it is, and then CTE will move into the existing choir room. So they all get, orchestra room, so they all get a larger space. And then the art, by moving downstairs, they'll have access to natural light and an exterior space as well. And then here's that ICC 500 tornado shelter that we were talking major renovation. We're basically taking it down to structure and rebuilding it to increase all the rooms. One exception of that is the existing gyms, existing locker rooms. We're keeping the exterior walls of it, but pretty much inside is the new finishes of those spaces. And then second floor, there's a library in the middle, showing you the new still classrooms around the perimeter. They just get bigger. And then in that center area, by moving the library downstairs, we're able to add 2 new science labs. So all the science is located in the same area. And then this is what the site plan looks like with the new additions highlighted in orange. So you can see the existing footprint. And one of the things we wanted to be sure is that our new additions were complementary to that existing facility, especially the big form and the big roof, green roof. So here's some elevations and kind of showing the new additions and how that fits in massing-wise. There's that front main entry that we talked about and library. And here is the Fine Arts Edition. And here's a shot from this is looking from the northwest back towards the building of existing. And then there's the new admin and library. And this is the shot from the northeast looking back towards the west. And you can see that same new piece there. So we really want to create a new front door that still be secure. You know, right now it kind of, you enter in the corners. And this is some interior shots. Here's the library. We're proposing in a couple of areas, you'll see some linear wood ceilings, bring some warmth in there. And you can see the natural light looking to the north, so you can take advantage of that. This is the new art studio. Same thing, natural light to the north. Give them a new space and access directly outside if they want to go out for projects, things like that. And then this is the new stage in the cafetorium. I kind of skipped over this, but we're proposing to infill the terraced floor to level it off and actually move the stage to the opposite side of the existing cafeteria so that now kids, as they go through the serving lines, have access directly to the cafeteria as opposed to having to walk around through the corridor to the stage. And then just real, how can I get this thing to play? Maybe I can get this to play. There we go. Just a quick video. This is actually flying in, the kids were flying in through the bus loop as you're approaching the building from the north. So you can see how it really changes that front door and approach to the building as you come in. And then there'll be another shot coming along Preston Meadow also. Natural light in the library. And we actually raised, so the bottom of that window is raised up. And that was really done because of concerns with security. You know, so that's why we did that there. The other thing you'll notice on this, as a part of the scope, we are replacing the metal roof. We are proposing not to go back to green. So, mixed results on that, or mixed opinions. And this is some interior, there's that interior library that you saw, and then there'll be a shot walking down the hallway to the new cafeteria and stage area. This is some of the collaborative spaces and the multi-purpose room there.
So in the redesign,
yes.
You mentioned collaborative spaces. Can you talk a little bit about the incorporation of that into the building design?
So we had a program, and the program, you know, one thing that's different on with Hendrix than this one is we have a larger enrollment, and so we couldn't lose any classrooms, which was really what necessitated the additions. So we had to maintain the existing classrooms. So what we did is we took the opportunity within the spaces that were there to have some little breakout spaces, and that into that video where you're flying down the hallway next to that stair. Mm-hmm. We took the opportunity to put a marker wall and a little bit of advanced seating. So that's kind of in addition to what's programmed, and take advantage of that so that learning really can happen throughout the building.
So I'm a big fan of that, and we've done this in some other buildings, but we haven't always been able to utilize those spaces maybe to the most desired you know, in the most maximum way.
Right.
And I hope that we have more experience now with doing it, and that we can really maximize the use of these spaces that
Well,
are
and-
going to be available for the first time in that particular campus.
Right, and it's not a lot of it, you know, it's not pervasive, but we did talk about how that can be used and with the principal, and she was excited about it, so I think that one of the things about it now is that same space is used for storage, because they don't have storage for the drama classroom, which is right there, so we've created that in there, so we're trying to alleviate some of those issues so that those spaces can be utilized, you know, better.
Great.
That they're there. Just quickly on schedule, Cadence McShane is on board as a construction manager. We've been working with them, and we met with the principal to go over phasing, because it's going to be pretty complicated. They have 6 phases, but there's a 1A, a 1B, a 6A, and a 6B, so I think that's 8. So we're going to have documents to them before the Christmas break. They're going to put it out to bid to get a GMP to you to hopefully start construction spring break in their first phase, and then systematically go through the building and be complete 100% before school starts in 2019.
So will the phasing involve portables?
Yes. There will be 3 quad portables, so 12 portable classrooms. And when you look through the phasing, and we're looking at availability of classrooms as new phases come online, you know, hopefully those 12 are going to be used up front, but then as new phases come online, we have less and less classes in portables as you go through the construction. So it's going to be a joint effort between this entire team to make this a great success, and we feel like our team is ready, the CM, us, and the district.
Well, we have experience with like a $60 million project, or 40 million? 40 million at Shepton, so I think they've probably figured out how to do it great.
So, okay, thank you.
Steve, quick question. When are they going to start construction on the Renner Fine Art building or expansion?
You recall which, it's not going to be this coming summer.
Yeah, but we're getting charter, I think we're lined up to possibly look at recommending architect and delivering
At the
January.
At January of 18 board meeting. So probably construction summer of 19. And it'll be, we'll probably do at least the 3 triplet schools at the same time. It would make sense, since they all have the same floor plan, to come up with a similar solution to each.
Okay, I just get community commit questions about that, particularly as they still see the portables out there.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much. It's very exciting. I think the designs are beautiful and functional, and I know that the facilities department has been very, very busy. So thank you.
Yes, I would point out these are probably 3 of the more major upcoming projects, but they're by no stretch whatsoever the only projects that are working on. We kind of had to have a little discussion about which 3 to bring to you, because there's so many going on right now, and they do a great job keeping everything rolling in this bond program.
Okay, next item on our agenda is item 7B. It is related to a culture of voting resolution. I just noticed that this says for information only.
Yes, I actually had a question about that as well. I think I've determined that it is for discussion and for preview of reviews and edits tonight,
Okay.
with possible adoption in December.
Okay. So Carla,
Unless you feel differently about that. That's how I understand it.
Well, the agenda item actually says for discussion and action.
does it say that? Okay.
Yes,
so
it
it's
does.
just in the script that's different. All right.
Right.
So we'll proceed the way it's posted
Good.
for discussion and action.
Okay.
All right, so Carla Oliver, the Assistant Superintendent for Government, Community, and Planning Initiatives, will present the Culture of Voting Resolution as it was modified as requested at the November 14 board meeting for consideration. Ms. Oliver.
Thank you, President Bender. As you stated, the original resolution in its native form I will say it was presented at the November 14th meeting. There were discussions about potential edits to that, and so during this review process before tonight's meeting, we did propose new language amendments and additions as well as some strikes. That also went before our legal counsel for review, for considering our local interest in that based on a sample resolution from others. There's an email that each of you received that just showed a compilation of exchanges regarding this so that you could kind of keep track of where we were. So the resolution that's presented is for your consideration this evening, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution as presented?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, yes. There are a couple of comments that I made, and since then I found one more thing, and that is the resolution somehow needs to read that we cannot, or I kind of drafted some language, we will prohibit influencing employees or students how to vote. And I know that in my comments that the lawyers went through, I mentioned to vote or not to vote and how to vote, and they addressed the to vote or not to vote, and they made a good point of it kind of defeats the purpose if we say, if this is a resolution to promote voting and we're saying we're not going to influence them whether to vote or not. I agree with that, but the how to vote I think needs to be there. So we do need to have some language on prohibiting influencing employees or students how to vote on issues or candidates. The how part is important. The second one is we talked about confidentiality. They made a good point about we can't force confidentiality. We can't tell people you can't say how you voted. My point was, and I probably didn't convey it clearly enough, my point is that we do not want to infringe on the right of employees or students to keep their votes confidential. If you want to vote, or the fact that they voted or not. If you don't want to say if you voted or not, that's fine. If you don't want to say how you voted, that's fine. We're not going to infringe on that. And the last one that I just mentioned, that I just saw that a few minutes ago, Section 2 actually says the word before last, may. And when it says may, we may create district communications, we may create district communications, we may be distributing and officially prescribed, and so on. The prohibit parts, which are the last one, prohibit negative consequences against an employee, the one about prohibiting influencing how to vote, and the one about prohibiting violating the right for confidentiality and privacy, those should not go under a may, those should go under a shall. Because otherwise we're saying, yeah, we may prohibit consequences, or we may not.
So I was writing as you were speaking, so just to be sure I recorded that correctly.
Mm-hmm.
For the point 1 and 2 that you outlined, you would like for that to appear under shall instead of may.
Yes, and the last prohibiting that we currently have should go under that shall as well.
Okay.
And I'm sure that that's the intent. The whole point is I don't want to put anybody in a position of they didn't know that you can't influence. They didn't know that you need to give people the right for confidentiality. They didn't know that that there is no, there should not be any consequences.
So a couple of items. State law addresses the school district's ability to, it prohibits a school district already from influencing. That's why we, in school bonds and TREs and school board elections, the district can only inform and educate. So this to me is, you know, state law addresses that already. The other thing I'll mention is that I'm going to suggest that we move this item to Section 4 and make it item D so that we can consider it for action, so we can put it in that particular category. So I'm moving it out of the information only Section 7 to information item for discussion and action to item 4. Okay? And we'll make that item D. Any other discussion?
Well, I guess since you brought up the bond, I think we did cross the line with the bond. I think that there was influence done, and that's exactly the reason why I want to make sure that everybody who is in this district understands that you cannot influence how to vote. You cannot ask people how they voted. They want to share, they can share, and that there cannot be any consequences. I think that given how the bond went, I think it's important that we include that language, because it was a state law before.
Okay. So we have a motion and we have a second. So I will now call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand.
We're voting on it without changes.
We had a motion and we had a second.
So I'd like to make a motion
So-
to amend.
We just had a vote.
Okay.
So motion passed, 4-2. Let me ask, we had all in favor, we voted for, all opposed? 2. Okay, so the motion passes 4-2. The last item on the agenda relates to cybersecurity measures within Plano ISD. This is for information only. Dan Armstrong, the Assistant Superintendent for Technology Services, will update the board on cybersecurity measures within Plano ISD.
Thank you, President Bender. Get this thing kicked off. Now, let me tell you, cybersecurity right here at the end, you guys are stuck around for a treat. When we started having this discussion, I think David brought this one up regarding, as we start doing the one-to-web Chromebooks, that we're going to start taking our information and putting it into the web. Since we've had that conversation, naturally, a lot of things have been happening in this realm of cybersecurity, especially towards districts also. And so for the past 4 months, I've been getting a lot of those questions regarding cybersecurity and what the district is doing with regards to all these different styles of attacks that are taking place. So honestly, I'm going to go off the reservation a little bit and actually show some live data. And so what I wanted to do was pick up, see, this is the problem. I'm going to go with live data on what we're doing, and I'm going to also show current systems. What you're seeing right here is the Norse map. What it really is a threat intelligence firm. They're based in Foster City, California. They gather information on attacks happening to the infrastructure real time. These records show where these attacks are coming from, and lets a lot of the customers know which IP addresses to block. But this is actually a real-time view of the net. I kind of wanted to show you, they did a good job at their graphical representation of this data. But what I want to show you, and I'm going to get into, this is actually our firewall. And what I wanted to show you was real time, what is actually happening to us today, right now, at 7:31 tonight. What you're seeing right here is the data of the people and entities attacking us from the countries all around the world, hitting our firewall, trying to connect to it. And to show you, a lot of those are showing that it's blocking. If you ever look at the actual timing on that, you'll see that it's about 5 minutes in the past. But if you look, it's on 7:27 and 52 seconds. And it's still on 7:27 and 52 seconds. this is all the attacks that are currently happening, trying to attack us. Every so often you'll see a little blue. That's someone trying to connect to our firewall also getting rejected. But I want to also show that a lot of this is taking place right now.
That's us in the middle.
That's us in the middle. That's our firewall. That's one of them. We've got two of them. One is located here in the admin building. One's off in the Spring Creek Data Center. But I want to show that these are the things that are truly happening to us right here at the moment, because this is going to lead us into the next part of the conversation. So a live look at live data. I'm going to log out of it because the engineers yell at me when I don't log out of those systems. And of course, you'll see there's a lot of stuff going on. Of course, the Norse attack. But with that being said, come back down here and finish up down here. I want to show that because a lot of these hacks that have been taking place against other districts are going to come up here in a second. One of the big ones happened against us, and I want to talk about live data and what actually happens. I think, Nancy, you were the board president at the time in 2013 when this started happening. That was a rude awakening for us in Plano ISD, because I've read about denial of service attacks. Those have happened to Amazons and Googles, but not really to school districts. I want to talk about these denial of service attacks because honestly, they still go on today. And as more and more we go to online testing, it's kind of an amazing thing that every time these tests start coming around, we start getting hit. And what do I mean by denial of service attack? What that means is our bandwidth to the internet, the hackers will actually concentrate a lot of effort to slow our pipe down by throwing junk at us to where we can't even talk. We can't get an email out. We can't get a web page to come in. And what that means is that while we're sitting here on the internet, they'll block that whole pipe up. And how do you resolve around that? That's what our biggest problems are. That's what our biggest problem was. Now I will tell you, I'm going to give you the short version because this took 2 years to build. But the 2-year to build solution was that we would have another route on the internet to go, and that's when we bundled with AT&T, where when the attacks happen, it goes to the mitigation sites, and the mitigation sites send us our information back. Now, I'll tell you, a lot of districts right now, they turn around and say, well, gosh, Dan, we only have a 1 gig pipe, but we'll just buy a 10 gig pipe, and that'll fix us. Well, our attacks that happened in the spring were over 7 gigs. We're just a hop, skip, and a jump away from these 10 gig pipes taking over, being flooded also. But this type of solution that we have does, when the 7 gig solution, when we were hit, we absorbed a lot of it, but we still went through our mitigation profiles, and we were able to thwart a lot of those to where the testing did take place, and really no one saw anything. Everything was just fine throughout the testing period. I always want to mention this because as we go forward, I can't tell you how many districts call me because they knew we were hit and how to resolve and build an architecture to design around this. And the unfortunate part that I have to tell them is it's not a fast fix. You can't just go out and buy a cheap, fast solution. To design a real, true solution, it's going to cost. You're going to have to restructure your borders. And so, but this is one of those big ones that I always watch. That I always watch for as we go into the future. But we're set with AT&T and our mitigation profiles. But on the original question, it was, what are we doing to keep the information safe? So I took that as, let's talk about it from the staff, let's talk about it from the students, but let's talk about it also from the parents. And what is Plano ISD doing to keep the information safe? As you walk through buildings, you'll notice that you walk through a lot of the, you'll see students on desktops running Windows, the staff members running Windows also. we do have basic security on the staff with the desktops, antiviruses. We went through a big Windows upgrade this summer, but we do patch Windows also. We always have to watch on when we do patch Windows, just because it's the same thing. When you have hundreds and hundreds of applications out there that do run on Windows, when you put out a service pack, you fix 2 problems and you create 3 more with the new service pack. And so to prevent a lot of that from happening, we do plan and we test those service packs in the labs. We roll them out in small amounts. As we roll them out, we pilot them at the schools to validate that they're not going to break too many things. We remediate a lot of that and then push it forward. So twice a year we'll do that on the desktop side. Here's where it gets really interesting though. On the server side, just so you know, on cybersecurity, we've actually gone away. The whole industry is starting to go away on server side signature-based security. It's really behavioral-based security now. So if your servers are talking the way they shouldn't be talking, since we're doing a lot of those virtual servers inside our data centers, a real big key is for us to do things with the new artificial intelligence types of systems that we've been placing on, so that they can thwart malicious activity by using behavioral-based components now. So that's a real big system, a real big concept. One of the things that I did want to bring your attention to is those critical systems bi-monthly patching. That's where we patch the servers like we do the desktops. I want to say that, and that last bullet of a penetration test. The penetration test, I did this as a board update a couple of weeks ago. We just had one recently done by Cyber Labs to validate and look at all the systems that are forward-facing to the internet. Just so you know, the results of that from Cyber Labs was, during the assessment, all attempts to gain unauthorized access in Plano ISD's external systems and internal network directly attacking the external public-facing hosts were unsuccessful. So I was really glad to see that come back from Cyber Labs. The reason why I bring those 2 up are because of those patching of the servers and the testing against your infrastructure. You heard about those systems that were hacked by Dark Overlord. I don't know if you've been reading in the mainstream media. Johnston Community School District in Iowa, Columbia Falls, Montana, Splendora, Texas. Hackers have gone in and were able to ascertain student information and everything by going through known vulnerabilities. So these are the types of things that we put in place to stop that and test and validate that those systems are up and are working properly. The other components, we do hourly updates. PCI compliance stands for payment card industry. We do take credit cards. So the banks that we deal with require that a third party come and scan your systems, and they give quarterly scans. We changed banks recently, so we changed providers in that also. So we have a new set from, I think, Trustee now, that's scanning us. So a lot of things are being done in that area to fortify it. In fact, if anything comes up quarterly, we get flags from the bank for systems that need upgrading or changing. And the other things inside our data center are that we do back up to the cloud. That we back up to the Microsoft Azure cloud, just for you to know. And we do have controls from our internal and our external auditors. Weaver has IT control sets for us to modify to make sure that our information is kept safe. Of course, you've been walking around and you connect to our wireless network. That was another area to talk about. Well, what are we doing in the wireless network? Because it is open. You can connect, and we have an unsecured network where you can bring your own device and have access to the internet in a limited format. We do use that, but all of our services, you'll see with the parents too, with a lock on your browser with the service that you're going to be connecting with. Our Chromebooks and our Windows devices do work on an encrypted network that we do have on the wireless, another wireless encrypted network. We're not susceptible to the crack. That's kind of a twofold component in our wireless infrastructure. But on rogue AP detection, I'll just give you another little tidbit of things that have happened in our district. Before we didn't do that, I said and remediation. I'm going to go ahead and call it out. I was at Clark High School, we found one, where the guest network was being advertised by someone's access point. That was, you would connect to their access point would connect to our guest network, and they would just harvest all the information that they would gather. And so one of our cyber solutions for that was the remediation, so we can actually point some of our antennas to block those, what we call them rogue APs out there, to render them useless, to stop that, what they call a man-in-the-middle attack. So these are things that have happened in our network in the past. But as we start talking about the Chromebooks and putting apps into the cloud, I just want to take some time to talk about what that really means. First off, I want to tell y'all that none of these files are transmitting the Social Security numbers. That's one of the things that people wonder, well, gosh, you're putting this stuff up in Google. Well, we do have very basic, I didn't even want to say directory information, because we don't have street addresses and all that going up to Google. It's just very basic information going up to Google. But when you talk about the next cloud down is the textbooks and web desk. We've been promoting the web desk a lot. The web desk, we do put a little bit more information out there. One of the things you're going to hear me talk a lot about in the next 2 to 3 years is this thing called One Roster. And that's a newer standard to where the whole idea is that we can have a safe and secure way to exchange information with textbook vendors. This is catching on really big. It's big in Florida. It's big. It's having a big footprint here in Texas now with the textbook vendors. As we start going, the goal behind that is that I'd like to see our instructional staff be able to set up the guidelines for information transfers without having the engineers and the database analysts involved, and we can safely and securely transmit information back and forth. It's currently in a safe mode now, but this will simplify some things for us to adopt different textbook and vendors quicker and safer going into the future. And the last part that I did want to say is, do we do full data set uploads to folks? We do, very rare, but the state of Texas is our biggest one, where that is Social Security numbers, everything does get transferred up with the state of Texas. It's called PINS reporting. In the PINS reporting process, we utilize, it used to be called Edit Plus, but now it's a new system called Texas School Data Systems, a TSDS. There is a lot of security around it, but I will say we do share a lot of information with the state of Texas. But from the parent's perspective, when you do connect to us, we do have the lock and the key. We do have an encrypted connection on all the services that you do connect to. I talked about the MyPISDnet, but I also wanted to talk about 2 other systems. One you're familiar with, the school messenger system. We do share information encrypted to the school messenger site. That's the site that is a cloud-based site that does all the contact information. That's what calls you. That's what some people say, you know, lets you know about your absences and lets you know an overdue library book. But that directory information is shared with that from a parent's perspective. And hopefully you guys have had a chance to try out the Blackboard, the new web app that's coming about with the parents. We are sharing that data up in a secure mode. So the app is talking on the back end securely using your parent portal account so that you can look at your students and all the information from the district in a secure mode also. So that's a really big area that we're focusing a lot of efforts on right now. And one of the other areas I just wanted to let you know about, because this has been gaining, this was from Atlanta, but I can tell you this was a problem in some Texas school districts also. And in essence, they have an employee service center. We have an employee service center. Employees can do a lot of things, call in an absence, do a lot of things in their employee service center. Well, this type of phishing attack, where a teacher or a staff member would type in their name and password, what would end up happening is the hacker or the person that got the name and password would go back into the employee service center and change your direct deposit information, not to go to your bank, but to go to their bank. And this is very prevalent. And so, you know, the question was, well, what do we do about it? Well, because we do have that ability. We can have the individuals reroute their bank information's direct deposit information just easily enough within the portal of the employee service center. But what we ended up doing with this was our current process, a lot of folks don't change their banks a lot. So our current process is that you still fill out a form, you get a wet signature that is processed by our payroll department. And you know, even though we have the ability to do this, we elected not to do it because this hasn't been an issue. But that's how we also want to tell you that, you know, when to thwart some of these issues, you don't have to over-automate a solution. Our traditional solutions have been providing a lot of security for that also. So, with that being said though, moving forward, what I wanted to do was kind of open this up to the board in talking about, I want to show some real world hacks that have been done, what we're doing as a district to thwart a lot of this. But as we move forward, you know, is there anything, when we talked about the digital landscape, that you want to see more of? And also, you know, as we come up, talk about a strategic plan in the future, a lot of this digital citizenship, we're doing a lot of that training right now to the teachers with regards to the Chromebooks, so they know how to use the Chromebooks effectively. We talk about those and do some training at some sites right now. But as we move into the future, is there anything else that y'all would like to see with regards to this topic?
Yes. First of all, thank you for the review. It was very insightful. I want to remind us, when I asked for the topic to be brought up, there is another aspect, and your first bullet is exactly where I want to go. What else? This presentation and what you're working on so far talks about protecting the district, students and parents in the context of the district, when you're part of the district, the information the district has, how do we make sure that we don't harm anyone through our system. However, we have a role, I mean, we provide students with skills for life. And part of it is how do you protect yourself against cybersecurity? How do you protect yourself against identity theft? You know, if we ask a student now, take the senior students, the ones that have the most life experience in 18 years, ask them how to spell phishing, and they're going to spell it with an F. That means they don't know those things, and we need to make sure that somehow we teach them, and it's mandatory. This is, unfortunately, this is one of the biggest skills for life that they need now. They need to know how to protect themselves. A separate item is cyberbullying. How do you not participate? How do you protect yourself against this? You know, can't tell you how many times I need to tell my daughters, you know, you posted something, I did an experiment with them, they sent me something on Snapchat, I captured it. Show them, that stays forever. Don't believe that Snapchat will erase. The message, the original message will erase. So I think, and I know that during the registration process, there is this short video, but it doesn't go to the, unfortunately, that video is far behind where cyber crime is today, and we need to get ahead of this. We need to get those kids go out to life knowing how to protect themselves. There's nothing I can think of that's going to be worse in that context than having your identity stolen when you're 18. You're going to live with that for the rest of your life. So I think we need to have some kind of program. I don't know how far we can discuss this here, but I'd like at some point to come back and see a plan. How do we teach that?
Well, I mean, I think those are both good ideas. I think as I was hearing you say those things, I think they're probably under the next topic, which is topics for future work sessions.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's something that we could address at a future work session, because it's clearly that wouldn't be Dan's realm to create programs, you know, educational programs for that type of thing. But I do think it's worthy. It's a very worthy discussion. Yeah.
I wrote it under future topics as well.
And
I'd say
I would agree. I think it would be important to get input from stakeholders. I mean, it'd be good to get parent input. It'd be good to get student input on this topic as well, because I think it's wide and pretty deep. So.
Because we just have to remember that those students, they live and they exist digitally outside of our system here. So all the protections we're going to have here are not going to protect them out there if they don't understand when they're under attack, when they're vulnerable.
So my only comment, Dan, for you is I consider myself a fairly educated man, and I caught about and understood about half, maybe, of what you were talking about. So
What's crack?
yeah, what I would say is I hope you are confident, because we have to have you as being the first line of defense here. So keep doing what you're doing. That's what I would say.
Why was everybody laughing when you said you consider yourself educated?
Because they know that I clearly.
Okay, thank you, Dan, for that update. All right, the last item is topics for future work sessions, and I made a note of what we were just discussing. Shall we call it digital citizenship? And one of the categories of that is cyberbullying.
Cyberbullying, one, and cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity.
Yeah, okay. Outside of PISD. So kind of as in the context of a skill for life.
Okay. Got it?
So one thing I'd suggest maybe is something we have talked about in the past as a group, and just it sort of never got traction, and that's what the speaker last time talked about, a kind of a leadership Plano program for people who'd like to be trustees, is maybe look into developing something like that. I mean, we have a year and a half. Yeah, we have a year and a half before our next election.
Okay.
So maybe talk whether that's worthy of developing.
Maybe explore what would be involved in that. Okay. Yorm submitted a topic recently about the weight of backpacks. Can you talk about that?
Yes, the backpacks are heavy. More? It really started with my own daughter, and this is kind of an advantage that you have. I call them spies in the school district, but she was carrying 23 pounds, and then she got another book, and now she's at 25 pounds on her backpack, and it only recently dawned on me to connect the back pains that she had, and so I posted something on Facebook, asked parents to tell me how much their backpacks weigh, and I got as high as 33 pounds. I mean, if you think of a 100-pound child carrying 33-pound backpack. So what I'd like to see is some kind of a plan over time to how we reduce that. First of all, to find out if there is research that supports this is a problem. Two is, why do we have it? Why is there a problem? And three is, so how do we solve it? And I expect that going digital is going to be part of it. Probably, I'm not trying to suggest solutions, but just we need to address that problem, because I'm hearing a lot of complaints about back pains from parents.
Okay, so we have 3 topics here. I know that we have a lot on our plate, so I'll work with Ms. Bonzer to figure out the timing that will be, just be patient with us over, a little time here so that we're not overtaxing staff because they have a lot on, we've seen their plan of work that they have. So, do you have any questions about these topics?
Would you want to check the board's perception on going forward?
So, okay. So just to make sure that we're, kind of issuing direction together. Digital citizenship, are we all, is that acceptable? Mm-hmm. Okay. Studying a leadership Plano ISD program and what's involved in that. Is that a yes or a no?
It's a yes for me, since I suggested it.
I think it's a yes, but I think we should set a limitation on how much time we want to invest in it. I wouldn't want the staff to plan a full curriculum and then come back to us.
Right.
So what do you want?
Just maybe explore how
High-level
other
plan,
districts are doing it. Because I think Richardson ISD has one.
So
that would be an easy exploration.
Explore options.
Just see how other districts are carrying it out.
Is that what you want to do?
I think
Just
so.
discover what others are doing and then
As a
see if there's
start.
interest? Is that okay? Okay, so the scope of that will be exploring options. All right, the third one, the weight of backpacks and planning how to reduce this over time and if there's a problem and how do we solve it. Is there interest in pursuing this?
Yes for me.
I mean, I think the first question is it a problem? Because I saw your Facebook post and I asked my kids and neither one of them had an issue with the weighted backpack. So
I
and that's
agree.
the first order of business is to determine whether it is a problem.
Yep. That's the way you solve any problem. You start with, is it a problem?
Yeah.
Once again, I wouldn't want to spend a tremendous amount of time on solutions finding until we determine whether it's a problem. I would want to ensure that places like Shepton, where we're doing renovation, what is the option for students using lockers there? Do they have easy access? Is it close enough? Does that possibly cause the issue? I know my kids use their car as their locker.
So let's agree that we start with the step of let's find if this is a problem.
Okay, is that acceptable? So
I wouldn't invest a big chunk of staff time for that.
So a cursory exploration of problem definition?
Yeah, I would just, something that would probably shorten our time, and I did a very cursory look at research that was done. I think that research can help us here. What are the recommendations? What percentage of body weight should be in the backpack and so on? Things like that. That can help us.
And Missy, this one wasn't on your list, but this may already be on the upcoming agenda. We were talking about increased dual credit opportunities, broadening the courses, and so is that on the agenda?
It's on the December agenda.
Great.
Okay. Okay, so that's what we'll do. Okay? All right, hearing we have no further business, this meeting is adjourned.